Okay, fellas. Now I know this is not the Shimano reel you wanted to see from my channel. And yes, I've been getting all your messages and emails wondering when I'm going to release my ALDEBARAN DC videos. I'm sure that most of you have been seeing some YouTube videos on the reel being uploaded already by the Japanese YouTubers. And yes, the new, very much anticipated Shimano ALDEBARAN DC has come out and has been out for a couple of weeks now. But here's the problem. Those reels are left-hand models only, and I'm right-handed. I'm definitely not going to spend nearly $400 on a reel that's the wrong-handed retrieve, no matter how long I've been waiting for it. I can wait just a little bit longer to get the right hand. Now we are in the last week of May, and I suspect that the right-hand models are going to finally come out at the very end of the month. So be patient, because you know my videos on this reel are going to be the most detailed and thorough. But until then, we have this reel, the new updated 2025 SLX BFS, which is a much more affordable reel, and we're going to see if Shimano actually improved this reel over the old model, or if it's just more of the same reel, just with a new fancier color. So let's get started. Okay, so I've taken the SLX BFS off the turntable, and I'm going to let you guys take a nice all around 360 degree view of this reel. Should be very familiar, and that's because this reel is based off of a platform that's been out since either 2016 or 2017, so it's going on like at least 8 years old, but still a handsome, very small compact reel even in 2025. And here are some, I guess, initial impressions of the reel that I got once I took it out of the box and handled it for a little bit. Now, first of all, the paint job is not as bright and shiny as silver as I thought it was going to be. At least not under these lights. Maybe when we get outside on the water under natural light, it'll look even shinier. But it's definitely not as bright and shiny as silver as the reel that I unboxed a few videos ago, the Hi-Star Ju99. Which is not a bad thing. It is a very dark silverish gray. And luckily, Shimano decided to give this new SLX BFS a gloss finish instead of matte. So the reel definitely looks more expensive with this paint job. It almost reminds me of the paint job of the 2016 ALDEBARAN. Now, number two is this reel is actually smoother and easier to turn the handle on than my CURADO BFS, and even the reel this originated from, which is the 2017 Scorpion BFS. So I don't know if Shimano did something internally, tighten up the tolerances, but yeah, it is definitely noticeably smoother and more refined than either of those other two reels that I mentioned. And speaking of which, let's do a quick comparison. Okay, so obviously we have the new SLX BFS, and here is the CURADO BFS. And you can see they are, of course, same frame, same side plates. Now the handle and drag star are different. You can see that with the CURADO, it is much beefier, and the drag star on the CURADO is metal instead of graphite on the SLX, which I believe it was the same with the previous model. So that makes me wonder if Shimano America is gonna pull the same lazy stunt as Shimano Japan did and give us a quote-unquote new CURADO BFS maybe this summer at ICAST. We'll just have to wait and see. Alright, so now it's time to compare this quote-unquote new SLX BFS with the reel that it originated from, the original 2017 Scorpion BFS. And they are using the same handle and knobs, but the Scorpion, just like the CURADO BFS, has an aluminum drag star. But I will say that the change that Shimano made by changing the blue accents on the SLX to silver and made this whole reel, I guess, a more neutral color, it is definitely going to match up with more rods color wise than the Scorpion or the Curado. So yeah, I like the new color, and any old SLX BFS owners, let me know if this new color scheme is gonna sway you to buy this reel. Now I will say, I believe Shimano should have used the original SLX frame to make the SLX BFS. As you can see, it's just as small, just as compact, and it definitely would have set itself apart. But oh well, that's just wishful thinking from me. So it's time to get a weight on the new SLX BFS, and it's probably going to be the exact same as the old reel, and it should be around the same weight as the Scorpion and Curado, but we're going to check that out. So we're going to start off with the original 2017 Scorpion BFS, 5.9 ounces. That's actually lighter than I remember, but it has been a while since I've even touched this reel. Alright, Curado BFS, 6.2 ounces. I guess I shouldn't be surprised due to the much thicker and beefier handle. Alright, time for the new SLX BFS, and I just want to say that all these reels are the 8.2:1 gear ratio, which I think that's the only ratio available. But 6.0, so lighter than the Curado, slightly heavier than the Scorpion, and that's probably due to the different material of the drag star. But we're looking at a 6-ounce reel, and honestly, a few years ago this would have been considered really light, but when China is coming out with reels like this, oh my god, the difference in weight is ridiculous. This thing feels hollow in comparison. That's because it weighs 3.6 ounces. So yeah, there's the comparison of silver again, for anyone who was wondering. But yeah, this feels heavy and solid. This feels light and hollow. Okay, so now it's time to go over the really important thing about the SLX BFS that Shimano changed. That is going to be the spool. Now once again, I don't have the old SLX BFS, but that reel had the exact same spool, just a different color, as the Curado BFS. And I'm sure you can see the difference between the two, other than the color. With the new SLX BFS, there is an extra row of holes drilled into the right hand side of the spool, or left hand side if you're lefty, that the Curado or the old SLX BFS did not have. Now when I did the preview video on this reel, when Shimano announced it at this year's Japanese fishing shows, I wondered if they were going to use the same old Scorpion BFS spool, which I'm going to show you right here. You can see why I thought that. Or what I hoped was that Shimano was going to throw in the spool of the old 2016 ALDEBARAN BFS. And I think I already know the answer, but we're gonna pull the spool scale out anyway and see what's what. Alright, so we got the spool scale out, and we got spools left, right, and center, and we're gonna do some weighing. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna weigh the Curado BFS spool. Comes in, I believe, at like 8.9 or 8.8 grams. 8.862. Now when this reel came out, Shimano said it was 9 grams, so I'm happy to have one that's a little lighter than advertised. Okay, and here's the original Scorpion BFS spool. As you can see, it's got more holes ported into it. None of them have spool bearings though. This, I believe, is 8.8 grams as well. Yep, almost 8.8 on the dot. Now, here is the new SLX BFS spool. Still retaining the long spool shaft, still 32 millimeters, which I shouldn't be surprised considering the frame that they're using. If they wanted to go smaller, they would have had to put spacers into the frame and probably increase the cost. But one thing you can see is that the FTB logo, hopefully you guys can see it, is just very subtle. Let me see if I can zoom in there. If I angle the spool the right way, you can barely see it. I kind of wish they would have made that like a bright silver, but oh well. Alright, moment of truth. 8.9 grams. So this spool is the same as the Scorpion BFS. You can see porting's the same, spool shaft is the same, no bearing, but it weighs even more. Now once again, I don't have the old SLX BFS, but I think that spool is pretty much the same as the CURADO BFS, so it should be like 8.8 grams as well. So this spool didn't lose any weight despite having more holes drilled into it. So hugely disappointing, very lazy effort from Shimano, but the reason that's disappointing is because right here is the 2016 ALDEBARAN BFS spool, only 7.7 grams with its tiny spool bearing. So without the spool bearing, you're looking at 7.2 grams. Shimano could have easily given us this spool and put it into the new SLX BFS. And I know that the spool would fit because, as you can see, the dimensions are exactly the same. Same width, same diameter, 32 millimeters. But this spool weighs so much less than this spool. Now granted, they would have to change the shaft. As you can see, the spool shaft on the SLX spool is much longer and thicker and heavier. But the ALDEBARAN spool does fit into the frame of the SLX. It definitely would have made this reel far more versatile, but I understand it probably costs more money to machine out this spool. I feel that the material is machined out to be thinner, which is another big reason why it's lighter. But I will say that Shimano did add what appears to be a silent tune O-ring. Hopefully you guys can see it there, right there. And a crap ton of grease is on my spool, which I'm gonna have to clean off. But yeah, big miss by Shimano. They could have sent off this platform with a bang by giving us a much lighter spool of the ALDEBARAN, but maybe it would have increased the cost too much. Who knows? Now real quick, I'm gonna touch on the brakes of the SLX BFS, and of course it is sporting Shimano's dynamic FTB magnetic brake system. Now if you've purchased any of Shimano's previous generation BFS reels, you'll know that those reels came with 2 extra magnets in a plastic bag, and what you could do is you could install those magnets, if you wanted, into an empty hole at the end of each bank of magnets, which is signified by the magnet that has the N engraved on it. And you can take those magnets off if you want less braking, or install them if you want more braking. Now with this SLX BFS, they came pre-installed already, but I'm happy to say that they are removable if you want to take them off. Now I think I did a test where I removed the magnets, and while I think the reel did cast a little farther, it was only like by a couple of feet or so. But anyway, I'm going to put the magnet back on. So just let you guys know that those 2 extra magnets are still removable. Alright, time to go over my, I guess, final initial impressions of this new SLX BFS. And it is another lazy effort from Shimano. Just as lazy as the quote-unquote new SLX XTA. And they did exactly what I predicted they would do and just toss in the old Scorpion BFS spool, but somehow the spool didn't lose any weight, at least not over my Scorpion or CURADO BFS spools. Now it did get smoother, and of course it still has a drag clicker, but if you are an owner of the old SLX BFS and you got this reel, I would be pretty disappointed, as you're really not going to get any kind of performance increase from this new spool. Or maybe you will. We'll have to find out once we get out on the water, but I don't see it. Shimano really dropped the ball when they didn't give us the old ALDEBARAN BFS spool in this reel. That's because in 2025, I think the average spool size is now a little under 30 millimeters, while this is 32 millimeters. And then we have reels that have spool weights under 3 grams. So the spool of the High Star Ju 99 is like almost 3 times lighter than the spool of the new SLX BFS. So in 2025, it appears that the new SLX BFS has come out and it's already obsolete. But I will say, since this is a budget reel going for, you know, roughly 150 bucks, maybe a little bit more, depending on where you get it, I'm really happy about the purchase due to its good looks. And what I plan to do with this reel is we're going to test out the lower limits of its casting capabilities. I'm talking 2.5 grams and under, and see what this reel can do when mounted on the right rod. I think it's gonna probably surprise us, but we'll just have to wait and see. Alright guys, thanks a lot.